Welcome to Passive Aggressive Income. This program may contain strong language. The content may not be suitable for audiences under the age of 17. We understand many of our listeners may not agree with all of our personal viewpoints. We in no way, shape, or form mean to be offensive to anyone. Our show notes will provide all of our source material included for each episode. Now let's get passive aggressive. Welcome back to another episode of Passive Aggressive Income. Today is our 30th episode. I'm so happy about that. Look at us go. We're just chugging along, doing our thing, and we're having so much fun doing it. And today, Lexie is having an awesome topic, so I'm going to hand it over to her.
Yeah, thank you. So 30 episodes is crazy to me that we've been doing this every single week. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know what to say about that, but I'm happy that it's been a really fun ride doing it with you and having our listeners and people telling us like what they liked about the podcast and their favorite episodes. So thank you guys so much for the support. So this episode is, I know I say this every single week, but a topic that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I know. I feel that's so hard because I'm like, oh, I'm excited. And then I say it. And then next week, I'm like, oh, I'm excited.
But yeah, I mean, we're just it's fun doing this podcast. So this week I'm going to be talking about some budget travel tips. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about how to save money for future investments and, how to be like fiscally responsible. But part of the reason that we're doing this is so that we can live the type of life that we want to live and reap the benefits of our hard work. And I love traveling, as I know Mins does too. And we don't believe that only well off people are able to do that. So, in this episode, I'm going to dive in and talk about how to travel even if you don't have a lot of money.
I'm so excited.
So the first thing is credit card benefits. I talked briefly about this in our Money Tips podcast several weeks back, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. So you can look into different credit card options to see what kind of benefits programs they have regarding to travel. So some examples of benefits you might receive are offering travel insurance or getting like double miles back on travel expenses, like when you purchase gas or a hotel or go on a tour or things like that. And then you can also get even more miles back when you book your hotel or flight or something like that through their platform. And if you are looking into getting a credit card that has travel benefits, just look into the timing of that because a lot of times they will have like sign up bonuses. So I have the Chase Sapphire Preferred card and I bought that so it's a yearly membership that I have to
Oh,
pay.
okay.
So I signed up for it in 2018, or actually I think it was 2017 because I was preparing for a long trip that I was taking.
Hmm.
And they ended up having a really awesome sign-on bonus where it waived the cost of the first year. And then for the entire first year, I think I earned double miles on everything.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, so definitely something to look into before purchasing. Just make sure that like there's not a deal coming like in a couple weeks that you
Mm.
could wait for.
So I'm thinking maybe around the holidays is when they usually do their deals because then people tend to like shop more and
Yep.
do all that. So that's what I'm guessing though.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly when, but I think you're right. I think it was towards the end of the year that
Mm,
they
okay.
had that crazy deal going on. So, yeah, definitely look into that. And then, so like I mentioned, consider getting a card that you do pay a yearly fee for. Sometimes the cost of the first year, like it was for me, is negated by the sign-on bonus, and then evaluate if you pay, like $100 or whatever for the year, then think about the benefits that you receive. And if you plan to use that credit card a lot, then the benefits you receive might actually make that yearly cost worth it, which I found is the case for me. So use your miles to travel. Miles can be used like cash. So like on any purchase, you can say like 1 mile equals, I don't know, it depends on what your credit card is, but it could equal like 10 cents or whatever. And you can use that directly like cash, but they will stretch farther if you use them through the credit card's platform. So using the Chase Sapphire Preferred example, they have a online platform which The user interface is really shitty and it's kind of annoying. But when you purchase like a hotel or your flights through their website, you'll get like triple miles back or something like that. So it really is worth it to like use those miles for the travel benefits that they provide.
Got it.
And then I put every single expense in my life on my credit card, besides things like my
Mm,
mortgage, which would require an additional fee for using a card, so that I
mm-hmm.
can earn miles on all of my purchases. And this has allowed me to spend an entire weekend in Vegas essentially for free, flights and hotel paid for, travel back from the US from Vietnam for free. And I think I did another trip to Arizona for free and so much more. Just as you know, I've said this before when we've talked about credit cards, just pay off the entire credit card balance every single month and don't let that pile
Yes.
up. Don't be paying for things that you can't afford. Make sure
Mm.
that when you're using this as a benefit, it's actually a benefit and it's not hurting you.
Yeah, I think you saying that you use your credit cards for the majority of your life may be scary to some people.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be if you intend to pay it, when it's due, because then you are saying, okay, I can afford this and then I can afford that. But when you just start swiping and swiping,
Mhm.
and especially big ticket items, like you just went and bought like I don't know what people buy that is big.
Like a
So
new
I don't
couch or
know, but
something.
yeah, a big couch that is brand new, and then you use your credit card for every other thing for that month, and then you look at the statement and you're like, I can't pay this. Well, obviously because you use it on everything and then a big ticket item. So
Mhm.
just be mindful of how you're spending it. And if you do buy something that is big, make sure that you don't maybe use it for everything else that month because it kind of that's like your payment.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's all about the planning ahead of time. And if you know you have like big expenses coming up, make sure you have the money ahead of time and
Mhm.
you're planning for it before you just start swiping and not thinking about it.
It's not free money.
Yes, it's not free money. It is money that you owe. And if you don't pay it off immediately, then you're going to pay more.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's my disclaimer. Very important. Make sure that this is something that you are keeping in mind. And if you are, then you can be really successful with reaping all of the benefits that credit cards have to offer.
Yes.
So I will leave off this section with just a couple of credit card examples. So I have talked about the Chase Sapphire Preferred card that I do pay a yearly membership for. I've been using that for probably like 6 years now. And I would say overall, I really like it. I have definitely I've had a couple of experiences with them that have made me want to pull my hair out.
Oh
But
no.
as long as you are, I mean, as long as you're using it and you're not having any issues, it's fine. It's kind of when you have to like make a claim or like deal with their customer service that it kind of turns into a nightmare. But I've heard pretty similar things with like many credit card companies. So unfortunately, I don't know if
Mm.
that's really something you can get away from. But
Right.
just putting that out there. And then a couple other examples that I've heard good things are the Platinum card from American Express and the Delta Sky Miles Gold, if you are a frequent Delta flyer.
The only thing with American Express is a lot of places for some reason don't take it,
Uh,
which is weird. Like whenever I worked retail, I don't know if it's the same now,
mhm.
but we didn't take American Express for some reason. So just make sure that you look into that before.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, so these are cards I believe you have to pay a yearly membership for, but there are options. So a card that I used before I got my Chase Sapphire Preferred card was the Discover It card with Discover, and it was free and they had a like miles program that wasn't nearly as advanced as the Chase Sapphire Preferred card, but I ended up saving a lot of money and getting miles back from it. But when I traveled internationally, that card was not able to be used anywhere, which is why we switched to the Chase card, which is Visa.
And what was the requirements when you applied for this card? Did you have to have like a certain credit score or what was it all
Yeah,
about?
I don't know what exactly the requirements are, but I'm pretty sure they did look at the credit score and they just looked at like any like maybe like outstanding loans and they kind of just did all of that on their end and then
Hmm.
made sure that like they felt okay with it. So if you have a really low credit score, then maybe this isn't a card for you because you may not get accepted, which in that case, just go with the free one, build up your credit, and then, you can switch down the road.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit about credit cards. And I am just going to reiterate one more time, you should be paying off your balance every single month.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll move on to flights. So, my favorite way to plan a vacation is not to have a specific destination in mind. I like to
Mm.
look at Skyscanner and put in the destination anywhere. And I can put in like, rough dates that I'm thinking, and then having it be from my airport. And then I'll just browse the cost of flight destinations to anywhere all over the place and see what kind of deals are out there.
My gosh, that is genius. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a specific destination in mind that you're like, I really want to go here, then for sure, just look into flights. And I really like Google Flights too, because they'll tell you if your flight prices are average, expensive, or on the low side for what it normally costs.
Oh,
And so yeah, you can do that on Google Flights. And then I also like to keep my dates flexible. So it may be more expensive to leave or to be flying on a Friday. So we'll fly on Saturday instead. And looking at the Google Flights calendar, when you're picking your dates, it'll show you the flight prices of each day, like the lowest flight price. And so you can kind of figure out like when would be a good time to go within that like window that you have available.
okay.
But I like the spontaneity of just saying like I know I want to go somewhere. I'd like to go somewhere warm over the winter. When this episode airs, I'll actually be just returning from Puerto Rico, but that's
Oh,
exactly my process was we looked at Skyscanner, looked at Google Flights and just kind of saw what was out there, picked a few locations, and then started looking into it as far as accommodation prices and activities and how easy it was to get around and decided to run with it from there.
and this is just my personal curiosity, but where are you going in Puerto Rico?
All over the place. So we're flying into San Juan, we're renting a
Hmm.
car, and we are heading west, all the way so my grandma lives in Manatee, Puerto Rico, which
Oh,
is probably or maybe like an hour or so west of San Juan. And then we're also staying in Arecibo,
mm,
Isabela, Aguadilla,
yes.
Rincon. Um, and then after that, it's not totally planned yet, but
Are
we'll
you
spend some time
planning,
in San Juan too.
are you planning on going to Vieques?
It's so hard. I went to Vieques the one other time I went to Puerto Rico
Oh,
when I was
okay.
13 and did the bioluminescent bay tour, and it was the most amazing
Mm,
thing that I've like ever experienced. And
awesome.
over the dates that we're going now, Alex and I, we have a kind of a big moon, and we would have had to go kind of right away. And we already started
Mm,
booking hotels before we realized that like that
right.
was sort of our window. So I think we have to miss it, which is really sad, but I think we'll be back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's so much about Puerto Rico that you have to see, and we didn't get to see a lot of it either,
Mhm.
just because I feel like 2 weeks isn't enough. And
Yeah.
uh, it is an island, but it has so much diversity and
Yes.
what it offers. It has beaches, it has jungles, it has
Hmm.
the nightlife, it has all these different in caves that you can go
Yeah.
into, and it's just really cool. So if you get a chance, maybe go to El Yunque, and that's like the jungle
Yes.
area. That was my favorite part.
That's on the to-do list for sure.
Yes,
Yunque
you're
National
gonna
Forest.
love it.
Yeah, I went there when I was 13 and went to Puerto Rico, and I just have like this image of my 13-year-old self standing in front of this like giant leaf from a tree that's like as big as my head to my torso, and I'm like, this place is insane.
Yeah, it's super beautiful, and it's like very like really calm and just kind of like I don't know, I think it's like the like how a hippie would live, you
Yeah,
know?
right. And
Well,
I'm
excited
about that
for you.
life.
For sure. Me too.
Yeah, so very, very excited for that. But yeah, so just to keeping an open mind in general, is just like a way that I would suggest you plan your vacations,
Hmm.
which includes not discounting budget airlines like Spirit, Frontier, Sun Country. You can get really affordable flights, and I know that sometimes those flights can be a little bit uncomfortable, but you can go to really amazing places for just a couple hours of discomfort while you're on the plane.
Right. Like I wouldn't suggest if you are going on like a 8, 9 hour flight to
Yeah.
go on those. I mean, if you don't mind at all, go for it. But I mean, if you can stick it out for 2, 3 hours, it's really nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And you may not get like the free snacks and like the movie screen and, all of the like fun amenities that you would get through something like Delta, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. Just beware of additional baggage costs.
Mm,
Because a lot of those budget airlines, you get a personal item and any like carry-on bags or checked bags, you'll have to pay an additional fee for. So just make sure if you are bringing a lot of things, does that like negate the cost and you're just going to have a bad time on a budget airline when you could have spent the same amount of money and flown like something like Delta and had a better
um,
experience?
that's a good point. Yep.
Mhm. So definitely just something to look into and calculate, but I also just suggest to travel light. You can refer back to our minimalism episode to see how I pack or own less clothes and how to make it work for all of your needs.
Hmm.
And then, like I kind of mentioned briefly before, it can be beneficial to purchase an airline's travel card if you are committed to traveling with that airline. Which for me, that doesn't really work for me since I am just open to like, oh, I'll go wherever and I'll fly whatever is cheapest. And so I'm often flying on a whole bunch of different airlines. But I know that if I were to stick with one specifically and make sure it's one that flies from your local airport, then I
Mm.
know that you can receive some good benefits about that. And then I've also heard good things about Scott's cheap flights. They offer various flight discounts, but you do have to pay for a membership with them. So I don't personally use it. I haven't looked into it a whole lot, but I know I have a friend and I've heard from several people that use Scott's cheap flights who have had good experiences with it.
Yeah, a lot of these websites I've never heard of, so this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here to help. I'm excited. Travel gets me super excited. So I could talk about this
Yeah.
forever. So, like I said before, keep an open mind. Some of my favorite travel experiences have been going to random, kind of like less touristy places that have awesome culture, awesome food, really fun things to do, but you don't pay the tourist prices because it's a bit off the radar.
Hmm.
For example, when I was backpacking through Europe and planning my next steps back in 2018, I looked on Google Maps. I zoomed into an area of Spain that I thought could be cool to visit, and I was going to be in Barcelona anyways. I chose a city, I looked into it, and it ended up being my favorite place in Spain that I went to. It has an ocean, cobblestone streets, ancient
Oh,
Roman ruins, and really great prices because it's just like a little city an hour from Barcelona that no one really goes to. And it's also really funny because I ended up on Google Street View seeing like the Google car driving through with the 360 camera. And so
yeah.
my husband Alex and I are currently in Tarragona, in several locations around the city, like in stuck in time in 2018. So
I love that though.
it took, I think, 2 years for Google Street View to update with those pictures. And we checked back every couple months to see if we like made it into the Street View. And I think we ended up like in 4 or 5 pictures around
Oh
the
my
city.
gosh. That's amazing.
That's really fun. So I have very fond memories of that place. And it's just like this random city that I selected and it ended up being
Hmm.
really cool. So while, like Paris and Barcelona and all of these like big cities sound really cool and are really cool, you can have a really fun experience going somewhere more local.
Right. And what we did for when we went to Thailand is just go on YouTube, and there was a whole bunch of people recommending, like, if you are a party animal, go to here, or if you are,
Hmm.
more laid back, over here, and then if you want to experience food, go over there. So YouTube again
Yes.
is a really good resource for you to research where you're gonna go.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, like YouTube videos, like especially like YouTube vlogs where people are just like documenting their
Hmm.
experience in the city is a really good place to see what other people are doing, and you may
Hmm.
end up off the beaten path. Um, as I was planning for my Puerto Rico trip, I'm very proud of this. I've gotten pretty good at like researching destinations and like where to go when I'm on vacation. And so I create like these super extensive travel documents. And like, here's the itinerary. This is our flight plan. These are accommodations. These are like all the things to do in each of the cities we're going to. And so I did a lot of research and then was kind of feeling stressed out about like all of the things that we had to do to prepare and with my semester ending. And so we watched some like YouTube videos of people going to Puerto Rico and what they recommended. And I ended up only adding one item or one city to my list because I had done my research and found
Wow,
everything else that like other people were recommending.
that's amazing. Look at you. You don't need no guide.
I know. I feel like I could be like a travel planner in another life.
Yeah, I would definitely take you up on your services because I'm just like, Jake, plan it because I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Alex and I are both like spontaneous people when it comes to travel, but I'm also a planner. So those things kind of go head to
Mm,
head sometimes and give me
yeah.
anxiety. So if I have all of the research done and I know what the options are, that'll make me feel a lot better when I just like show up to a place.
Yeah, for sure. So the way that I travel with my brother-in-law, so
Mhm.
it's typically us. So my brother-in-law, my husband, and I go out west, and he just starts driving, and he like has been out west multiple times. He
Mhm.
probably knows it very well by now. And he lists all of our spots that we, tell him we want to do hot springs, we want
Yes.
mountains, we want all these types of things. And he just starts driving, and Jake kind of has a feel for it too, but I don't plan anything. I just let them drive me out there, get me to the places. But those are like the most fun times that I've had. And they're super cheap. I mean, it's a lot of driving, but
Yeah.
if you like camping, we do a lot of camping outside, and it's a lot of free areas that you can do
Yes.
that. And it's just,
Hmm.
yeah. So I definitely understand that. Like, you want to plan it, but sometimes it's just really cool to just let it happen.
Yeah, you just like show up to a place and see what it has to offer. And
Yeah,
that way you're like not locked into a strict itinerary because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into until you show up to a place and see what it has to offer.
right, right.
So, another one of my tips here for keeping an open mind when you're traveling or planning a trip is to stay local. So, I live in Minnesota in the Twin Cities, and I spent about a week in northern Minnesota over the summer, and it was so beautiful and fun, and it was such a like cool vacation. And what I realized is we were kind of planning a trip to maybe go to like Utah or Washington State, and everything is just really expensive.
Mm,
And then we realized people travel to northern Minnesota to experience like this part of our state. And just because you live here doesn't mean that you can't act like a tourist in your own state. We ended up having a really awesome time. And because we weren't spending money on flights or having to rent a car because we just drove up, we had that money that we could either save or actually spend on activities there too.
I love that. That's such a hype. Just explore your own state and make it, be a tourist in it. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, so consider hostels or shared spaces. I know some of our listeners are kind of cringing when they hear me say this, but hear me out. Keep an open mind. We don't have many hostels in the US, but don't discount spending time in a shared space. You're on vacation and may not be spending much time in your room anyway, so why not opt for a bed in a dorm room? Or on Airbnb, you can often find rooms that the hosts are just renting out, like their spare bedroom.
Mm.
And you can stay with the host and you can get a really local experience for not a lot of money. And for our investors out there who are listening, this could be a really fun money-making opportunity too, to meet some people from all over the place.
Just sure that you look at reviews because then, you get other people's opinions on the people that you're staying with. Like, ooh, they were a little creepy. I don't know. It was a weird time, or they were awesome. They gave us space, and just make sure that you read that.
Yes, for sure. It's definitely like when you plan on being in such like an intimate environment, when you're in someone's home or you're in a dorm
Hmm.
room with like, I don't know, a bunk bed, like one half of a bunk bed with like a whole bunch of other people, then just make sure you're doing a little extra research than if you were
Hmm.
staying in a hotel in your own private room because you there's a little bit of a factor where you have to consider your safety more than when you're in a private
Hmm.
space. So do the due diligence, look at reviews, make sure that it's cool and safe, and if it is, you'll have a really interesting experience. And along those lines, there's an app called CouchSurfers. I haven't personally used it, but we've definitely looked into it and have considered it, but it didn't really work out when we were traveling. But it's an app where you can find people to stay with that will host you for free, and
Hmm.
you can experience life in their city living like a local. So with CouchSurfers, the point of it is kind of like human connection. So you would go and stay with someone who's going to show you around their city and like offer an experience. Or if you're a host, then you can, have a couch or a spare bedroom or whatever the space is and host this person for free and just like take them around and show off what your city has to offer. So that's a really cool way to travel for free and get an experience that not many people would be able to get if you were just staying in a hotel.
Right.
And then, like Mim said, my next tip is to spend time in nature. So, hiking, visiting national parks, going on a road trip, and camping is a really awesome way to spend a lot of time somewhere for not a lot of money. So, if you're an
Hmm.
outdoorsy person, then I'm sure you already have experienced the benefits of not paying a bunch for like a hotel and a rental car and going out to eat and just spending time in a beautiful area.
Right. And then when you're out there like hiking around or whatever, it just I don't know. It's such a different experience than doing it commercially, having a commercial vacation. You just really get in touch with your surroundings and with yourself. That's what we
Mhm.
preach all the time, right? Just being present and not being on autopilot. So I really think that this is a really good point.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, it's something that you can just like focus inward and like find peace because being in the city can be really stressful sometimes. So I love a good vacation where I just do like a bunch of hiking and that's kind of
Hmm.
what my North Shore trip was over the summer too, is just like seeing what the state has to offer. Another tip would be just to walk everywhere. You don't need to rent a car in a lot of travel destinations around the world. It's good exercise. You'll see things that you may miss if you were driving, and it can lead to spontaneity. And you don't need to pay for parking or gas or the cost of a
Hmm.
rental car.
Right.
One of my favorite things was when I was in Europe and I was in Venice, Italy. We were just walking around and like we had no money for this vacation. And we ended up just stumbling upon this big, huge cathedral that was like open and we could just walk in for free. And granted, maybe Venice isn't like the best example because they don't have cars on that island, but
Huh.
it just goes to show like how many cool opportunities you could have by just exploring a place on your feet versus if you were driving by.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also look into public transportation. A bus ticket may only be a couple of dollars compared to like quadruple or five times that amount of money if you were paying for an Uber ride or, renting a car. And in places where public transportation is more developed than here in the US, it's a kind of a fun experience. I mean, I always love like riding the train in Europe or going on like a weird kind of sketchy bus in Mexico and just being with all of the locals and seeing like how they live and how they travel. Just do your research ahead of time to make sure it's safe.
Hmm.
My one thing that I looked into is not to take a long distance night bus in Southeast Asia because the drivers are like, have been driving all day and they're really tired and it's kind of
Oh,
sketchy and produces a lot of accidents. So instead of traveling and sleeping on the bus overnight, just take the bus during the day and it's a lot better. So just do your research.
Yeah.
And then I have just a couple more tips under this keep an open mind category. Cook rather than going out for every single meal. Find a place with a kitchen or at least like a kitchenette, or just grab some fruit in the morning. And if you do want to go out, then like do 2 meals instead of three. And just be cognizant about the amount you're spending on food. And
Right.
also reduce your shopping. I know this is hard for some people because it's fun to show up to a place and just like buy all of the different things that they have,
Yeah.
but make sure you bring what you need and try not to get sucked into the shiny storefronts. And this may make me sound like kind of an asshole, but I don't normally bring back little gifts and trinkets for friends and family when I go on trips. I'm the one who's having like memories associated with this trip. So when I bring back something, like it's a nice gesture, but maybe it's not as meaningful to them. Or like in a couple years when they're going through their stuff, they're like, oh, I can get rid of this like little wooden turtle from Mexico or whatever. And I
Right.
was like, I don't have any memories associated with that. So,
For people that like to give gifts, I have
mhm,
a tip for you.
yeah,
Get them like stickers, because I've done that and it really doesn't take up space, like a sticker or a magnet. So
yeah,
I have collected magnets from all of the places that I've been instead of buying like a t-shirt or a hoodie or whatever, because I don't really like to dress that way, so I don't
right.
need to buy that. But magnets, I have it slapped on my fridge, and I see all the different places that I've been, and other people will enjoy that too. So keep it
Mhm.
small if you're gonna buy something for somebody.
Yes. And I also have a fridge full of magnets from all of the places that I went. So, yeah, if
Yeah.
you do like to shop and you want to get some sort of memorabilia for yourself or for someone else on your trip, a magnet is a cheap, small, and cute option that is actually kind of useful.
Right.
So yeah, something like that, or unless I find something like really meaningful that reminds me of someone specific, then I tend not to buy things just for the sake of buying them.
Right.
And I also travel so much that this kind of gift giving might be a bit excessive.
Yeah, it really adds up.
Yeah. So, my last tip here for this episode is to keep track of costs. So, before you even go on the trip, when you're planning whether how long to stay or where you want to go, estimate your rough costs and then set your budget so you know roughly how much you're going to spend before you even go on the vacation and then stick to it.
hmm
So, when I was spending my 6 months backpacking in Europe and Southeast Asia, I documented every single item that I spent money on for the entire 6 months. So, from my gas to meals, accommodations, bus tickets, museum entry costs, everything. I put this in a notepad on my phone. And at the end of the day, I would add up all of those costs and then I would calculate it to see what my average spending per day was and making sure that was sticking in with my overall budget. So if you are on a really strict budget like I was, I think this is a really good idea. So you're not like getting out of hand and you're like, can I splurge on this thing tonight? Or is it a better idea? Should I just stay in and cook? And
hmm
also, having this document is really fun to look back on years down the road. So I can see exactly everything that I paid for from 2018 when I was in Europe and Southeast
Wow.
Asia and see how much money I spent.
Right. That's amazing.
So that's a bit about budget travel. And I really truly believe that traveling is not only for the wealthy, you can experience all sorts of crazy adventures, even when you don't have a crazy big wallet. And from a post college, like newly graduate 22-year-old to backpack around the world for 6 months, or I was a 25-year-old who wanted to spend my anniversary somewhere cool, even though I just bought a house and was up to my ears in renovations. I assure you, it is possible to travel on a strict budget.
For sure. And don't discount if you have a camper, using that camper and traveling around, because that is a home on the back of your, vehicle, and you don't, that you're home already. You have a place to stay. So we've done that a lot. We had a little truck camper that we took out west a few times, and I actually have a funny story. we took it out for the last time and we didn't realize it. Um, we were driving down a busy highway and the top of it came off.
Oh no.
Like the top of it was coming off. So we basically had to um junk it and put all of our belongings in big containers for the rest of it. But on the last night before junking it, we stayed in it and
Oh
it
my
was like
gosh.
it was all off in the top so we could see the sky. And we
Nice.
just tarped it.
Stargazing.
Yeah, we just tarped over it, but whenever we wanted to see the sky, we just like moved the tarp and just look. But it was funny though because it had a little kitchenette, and during the day before we went to bed, I started cooking, and then I seen the guys just playing in the field, and they looked over at me, and you can just see my head from like the whole thing while I was cooking. I'm like, "Hey guys," and it was just so things like that are really memorable, and it's cheap, and it's something that you know you don't plan for. So like you said, keep an open mind, and you'll make the best out of it.
Yeah, and roughing it like that produces some of the most fun memories, to be honest.
Oh my
And
God, yeah.
even if you don't have something like a camper, like I have a hatchback Prius, and I've been able to put
Oh,
the seats down and just sleep back there and just like, pull off to a like rest stop on the side of the road and get a couple hours of sleep rather than staying in a hotel and spending money on that. So really live adventurously, travel adventurously. Don't be afraid to rough it and try something new because it'll be a lot of fun.
exactly. Well, thank you so much for all of that. I've learned a ton. Every time that you do an episode, I'm learning. So it's great for me. It's great for our listeners. So thank you so much. And tune in next week for a real estate episode that
Yeah.
we are really excited to talk about together. So
Mhm.
make sure you tune in and thank you for tuning in today.
Yep. All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Passive Aggressive Income was written, recorded, edited, and produced by co-hosts and creators Mims and Lexie. We truly want to thank our listeners, collaborators, friends, and family that continuously support us for all the love we receive. If you enjoy our show, please give us a glowing rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see what we are up to. For any inquiries, please email passiveaggressiveincome2023@gmail.com. Episodes of Passive Aggressive Income are available wherever you listen to podcasts, so make sure to subscribe and like us on your favorite streaming platform.